today I want to talk a little bit about choices. Every once in a while I am not every once in a while I'm scrolling a lot. We all scroll a lot, right? But every once in a while I'm scrolling on social media and I notice these very well-meaning quotes that people post, and it's like, choose joy, life is short, choose happiness, choose joy. What's another one? Fall in love with life, right? They're beautiful, they're wonderful, very well-meaning quotes, right? Even Ernest Holmes, those of you who know who Ernest Holmes is, has a quote that says, choice is our eternal birthright. So choice is very, very important. But choosing joy, choosing gratitude, choosing to be productive, choosing to fall in love with life isn't always easy, right? The reality is we can't simply choose these things without practice. And for some of us, we need more practice than others. I fell into that category for sure. I need a lot of practice to be able to choose joy and choose happiness. So if you've ever struggled with an addictive pattern, who here has not, by the way, struggled with an addictive pattern? I would love to talk to you after service. Please, I want to know everything about you, okay? But if you've ever struggled with an addictive pattern, or if you've ever had patterns of depression or anxiety, patterns of self-sabotage, behavioral or substance addictions, right? Then you know that it's not easy to just quickly transcend these patterns. But what I want to share today is a way to start to approach the internal patterns of limitation so that you can uncover the hidden choice that lies within them. The choice to build new patterns, ones that serve you. I want to read a quote now that I came across as I was working on this talk by Elaine Baskin. If we become aware of our emotions, of our moods, of our reactions, we then have choices about how we want to react, how we want to be in the world. If we don't have awareness, then we cannot make a choice. Awareness gives us choices. With choices, we have the opportunity to grow, to become who we really are, and to become our best selves. So awareness is the key here, but again, that awareness has to be built. It has to be cultivated most of the time. And for anybody who's suffered trauma in their childhood or in their past, or who has gone through something, that has really, really left some unintegrated wounds, then again, this choice isn't easy, and I can't recommend enough working with a guide, working with a professional to help make these big changes. To make the kind of change I'm talking about, to be able to shift out of these patterns of limitation and to uncover the hidden choice to do things differently, often we have to first get to know our patterns, right? We have to get to know what's going on inside of us. The pattern to people please. Who has that one? I totally had that one for a while. I still do sometimes. I got to watch that one. Procrastination, patterns again of anxiety, self-sabotage, depression, and again, if any of these things are so overwhelming that it's really a struggle for you, I can't recommend enough working with a medical professional. But the way that I want to address these patterns today is I want to look at three components of the patterns. I want to look at the thoughts that go along with the pattern, the feelings that are oftentimes attached to the patterns, and then the behaviors. So when we look at our thoughts, we're going to use the example of procrastination because that's a fun one. I did that one for a while too. So when we look at procrastination, if we look at the thoughts, oftentimes it sounds something like this. I can't believe I did this again. I am totally overwhelmed. I left all of this till the last minute. My deadline's tomorrow. Why did I do this to myself? I'm so lazy. I'm so stupid. I'm so fill in the blank, right? So as soon as we start to notice that we are being very harsh on ourselves and being very judgy and very critical, we call that the inner critic, right? So as soon as we notice that voice, we have this beautiful opportunity to pause, take a breath, and reframe with compassion. So when we talk about shifting patterns, when we look at the thoughts, reframing with compassion is such a powerful tool. So as soon as we notice, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm so lazy, whoa, hold on a second. Who's that talking to myself? Wow. Take a breath. Wow, I'm really struggling to make deadlines in a way that serves me best. There must be a wound in me. There must be some pain here. How much more compassionate does that sound than, oh, you're lazy? And what's truer? Is it more true that I'm lazy, or is it more true that there's a wound in me? I'm going to say a wound, okay, because I've been a lot with my internal experience, and I can tell you there's usually a wound in there somewhere. So when we reframe the thoughts, we reframe with compassion. Oh, there must be some pain in me. There must be a wound in me. Then if we want to look at the feelings, a lot of times if we use procrastination, there are feelings of resistance, right? We're feelings of overwhelm when we've pushed ourselves to that point of the deadline. But rather than, again, judging the resistance, going into the I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm that, again, with our feelings, we want to be curious. What's going on in me? Like, what is this? How does it feel? Where is it in my body? Is it here? Is it in my stomach? Is it in my throat? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it pinching? Is it vibrating? Is it heavy? Almost like a scientist watching a science experiment, right? Like we want to be little scientists with our feelings. What's happening? Is the feeling moving up now? Is it moving down now? So we get really curious. And then we just give it permission for a little bit. It doesn't even need to be that long. Just a moment of permission for that experience to be there. I talked about this a little bit in my talk in January, just that permission for the sensations to just be there. So curiosity and permission with our feelings. And lastly, the behaviors. This is the really tricky part, right? The behaviors. But with our behaviors, what we want to do is just make tiny, seemingly trivial changes. I am somebody who suffered from crippling depression for at least 20 years. I don't really know. It started when I was a teenager and went on into my early 30s. And it was so bad that, when I didn't have to be somewhere, or I didn't, have to show up somewhere, I would just lay around a lot. And my saint of a husband watched me lay around a lot. Right, babe? So he knows, he saw it. And what I'll say is that, the weight of my feelings felt so heavy and so unbearable at times that I couldn't move. And so I'm very much speaking from a place of experience when I say that these tiny little changes of behavior can eventually allow you to move mountains. When I first started to try to change my behavior, the first thing I would do is I was laying down a lot, and I said, okay, I'm going to sit upright for 10 seconds. That was it. That's all I did. I just sat upright for 10 seconds, and then when the 10 seconds was up, I permitted myself to lie back down again. But here's what I did. When I sat up for 10 seconds and I counted to 10, I brought a lot of attention to the fact that I did that. Hey, I don't have to lie down for hours and hours and hours. Look, I can sit up for 10 seconds. And then I started doing that little by little. I started to realize how much power I had and that I wasn't bound to lying down for hours and hours. And then slowly, instead of sitting up for 10 seconds, it was standing for 10 seconds. And I just built it little by little. So if we take this example of procrastination, if you have a book deadline coming up, let's say you're working on a book, you commit to 1 minute a day and you set a timer for, it could literally be 10 seconds. That's better than nothing, right? 10 seconds, 1 minute, you set a timer, and when the timer goes up, you ask yourself, check in, do I want to keep working or do I want to go back to what I was doing? And if you want to keep working, great, and if you want to go back to what you're doing, that's okay too. But the key is bringing a lot of attention to the fact that you carried your resistance with you for 10 seconds to work towards your goal. I sat up with all the heaviness and all the yuckiness for 10 seconds to work towards my goal. I know this isn't the most appropriate movie for Sunday service, but who's seen Kill Bill? Okay. All right. So, when Uma Thurman's in the back of the truck and she's laying there and she can't move from the waist down, and she just sits there and she goes, wiggle your big toe. Wiggle your big toe. And as soon as she wiggles her big toe, she finds the strength to get up and continue on her mission. I think I cried the first time I saw that because I was like, I can wiggle my big toe. And I was very much, in the midst of my depression back when I saw that movie. So it really is a series of tiny, often seemingly trivial decisions over time that allow us to build awareness to the point that we have a choice to make a big change. And given my past, I can tell you that you are all capable of it. With the right help, with the right guidance, with the right tools, you can do it. The more we practice disidentifying with our patterns, the more we can cover where it is that the choice lies to disengage from the pattern entirely. It just takes time and little by little expanding that awareness more and more and more. Current studies in neuroscience actually show us that awareness uncovers previously unnoticed options. So when we're faced with a problem, oftentimes at first, all we see is the problem, right? All I can see is the problem. And we need the right tools to be able to expand our awareness out of the problem, or maybe we need to facilitate a discussion with our peers. But whatever it is, what we are doing, the tools, the discussion, it's bringing us outside of the problem and allowing us to look at something in a multifaceted way. And when we do that, we uncover numerous options. This is the same with our internal patterns. When we expand our awareness of our emotions, our moods, our behaviors, our thoughts, and we bring compassion and curiosity and permission to them, we can start to see the potential for change. When I was working on this talk, I was trying to come up with a really clever title. And I came up with the title, Awareness is the Seed of Change, and I was so proud of myself. Awareness is the seed of change. It's so great. And then I'm very, studious, so I Googled it to make sure nobody had, taken it or said it, and sure enough, somebody had. And so instead of it being the title of my talk, I wanted to just share the quote with you. It's a quote by Richard LaPlante. And the quote is, again, awareness is the seed of change. Oftentimes we think choice is the seed of change. I've heard that before. I don't know how many of you had. And choice is important, but we can't find the choice without awareness most of the time. When we are aware, we join with what's called the observer mind, or some people call it higher consciousness or the higher self, or some people say the indwelling spirit, right? Intuition, all kinds of different words for it. But when we join with awareness, we move outside of our patterns, right? We disidentify with our patterns. We experience more of who we are. We were designed, believe it or not, I know it's hard sometimes looking at the world the way that it is, but we were designed to be happy. We were designed to be joyful, and we were designed to love. That's who we are. We are not our patterns. And the collective patterns that we see going on in our world today, that is not us. Okay? It's not who we are. When we reframe our thoughts and we choose to be compassionate towards ourselves, then we're the compassionate one, right? We're not the judger anymore, we're the compassionate one. When we choose to get curious about our feelings that are going on inside of us and permit them, then we're the ones getting curious. We're the one permitting. We're no longer the feelings. We're just permitting them. When we make a decision to make tiny little trivial changes to work towards our goals, we are the one stepping outside of the usual and into the one building a new pattern. We are disidentifying, we are disengaging in all the tools that I shared. We are the space in which our patterns play out, and we do have options. But we must cultivate awareness of those options first. So again, building on the new pattern, building our awareness of the new pattern is going to be key. So like when I sat up for 10 seconds, oh my gosh, I don't usually sit up for 10 seconds when I'm doing this. I'm so grateful. I'm so proud of myself. Wow, I don't usually question my thoughts like this and switch to compassion. I'm so proud that I did that. I'm so grateful that I did that. I didn't know I could do that. Wow, I was able to pause in the midst of these intense feelings and get curious and allow and permit. I didn't even know I had that in me. So bringing tons of attention and praise and gratitude into the moments where we build what we want, where we build something new. There's a really great quote by Socrates, and it goes, "The secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." So for many years, I was fighting the old, and it got me nowhere. I was just going around. I was almost like Groundhog Day. Different scenery every day, but it felt like Groundhog Day, right? Whoever's seen that movie. But once I started little by little to build the new, even in the tiniest way, I started to, and I actually didn't even realize I was doing this, but I started to cultivate and rewire myself. Like I was rewiring the chemicals in my body, and I was actually totally forging new patterns. And I didn't even know I was doing it. But now I can say, well, yeah, that's definitely what I was doing. There was a time in my life that I never thought I was going to be capable of being a mom, and I'm a good mom. And there's a time in my life where if somebody said, oh, you're going to be a minister, I would have laughed at them. Oh, what am I going to talk to people about? Like watching Netflix? Like, I don't know. Trying to meditate and then choosing to go watch a movie? I don't know. Think anybody wants to hear that. So I really am, a proof and embodiment of the fact that these tools work and that these little changes can lead to something big. So I really invite you this week to take a look at maybe an area of your life that isn't serving you. You can even think about it right now. Maybe there's a pattern that is playing out in your life that you can see you want to rewire, that you want to cultivate a new, pattern and bring more awareness to. Whatever that is, take from this talk what resonated with you. Don't feel like you've got to attack it from every angle because we don't want to fight it, right? So if the idea of going into thoughts with compassion resonated with you, then do that. But the other stuff sounded too overwhelming, fine. Really just take what resonates with you today and bring it into that pattern and see what happens over time. And whether you go into your thoughts and reframe with compassion, or you go into your feelings and get curious and permit, or you start making tiny changes to your behavior that work towards your goal, no matter what you do, celebrate yourself when you step into the new. And bring lots of praise and attention to yourself when you make a change. Because you're proving to yourself, you're providing evidence for the fact that you aren't stuck. When we bring the light of consciousness to our patterns, we free ourselves from them.
Hi, friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this message supported you. We are a nonprofit, and we do all of this based solely on the gifts that you give. No amount is too small or too large. You can text to give. You can go online and check out our website. We're doing so much. You can give that way. Thank you so much for being here, for being a part of this community, and for supporting this message of bringing more light, more love, and spirit-led social action out into the world. Thank you. You're loved. So loved.